Hi guys, and welcome to Mom Babes, where every mom is a babe. And if you're like, Christina, I don't feel like a babe. I have had BO for the past 3 days because I can't even seem to get to the shower or get on some deodorant. Then this channel is especially for you. None of us has it all together, but we are all creatives. And if you're like, I'm not a creative, that's a lie, because raising a live human being is the most creative thing that there is. Be sure to subscribe and ding the bell to get notified when I release a new video so that you never have to miss one. Today we are talking about something I am super excited to share, and that is how I got pregnant after my 6 consecutive miscarriages. I do another video on just the story of what I went through and emotionally what it was like, physically what it was like, so I will link to that below. But this is more the medical side of things, what I think was going on with my body and why it was so hard for me to get pregnant. So lately, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about infertility. It feels like every other person I know or have heard of has had some kind of infertility struggle. And this is how my brain works. I'm like, is it just that more people are talking about it and there's more awareness? Or is there an underlying reason in this modern age, something that we're breathing or eating or doing that is not helping our bodies with fertility? I don't know, because obviously there's no research on that yet, but it is like, that's interesting. It just seems like so many people are struggling in one way or another. Anyway, maybe why you're watching this video is because you are having difficulty, and oh my gosh, my heart just goes out to you. It's such a laborious, such a hard, rough thing as a woman to feel like you can't achieve this dream of getting pregnant for whatever reason that is. For me, I struggle with multiple miscarriages. So I could get pregnant, but I couldn't sustain the pregnancy. And during that time, I did feel a lot of like hopelessness, a lot of sadness, a lot of hope too for the distant future. But in the moment, it was just really rough. And so if you are in that place, give yourself grace, give yourself time to process mentally, to get into a good place emotionally, to recover. I'm a big advocate of therapy. I've been like several times throughout my life. Everybody should go to therapy. If you're a human being, you need to be in therapy. But obviously, I wish it didn't have the stigma it did, because I feel like it's really helpful. It's been helpful for my life. I highly recommend it. But, and it's so affordable today. There's a lot of mental health awareness, and you could even do it like online and stuff. Anyways, you should go to therapy. Not because you're a bad person, but because everyone should go to therapy. Because I have a specific medical history, what I did to get pregnant might work for someone who had a similar type of history. So I'm just gonna go through that. So for me, basically, when I first got my period, I was 13, pretty standard age, but I had these death cramps. And if you have death cramps like I have death cramps, my heart goes out to you, because it is one of the worst afflictions ever. And it's not like, oh, I'm cramping, I'm uncomfortable, I want to lay down. It's literally like, I'm sweating, I'm pale, I have to be kneeling over at all times. The only thing I can think about is painkillers or hot searing cement that I can lay on to relieve my muscles, or go sit in the hottest bath that there ever was. And that's the only relief that I can get. I remember like work, they would look at me and just say, you look ill, like sweaty, shaky, pale, like just bad, and like you need to go home. So it's like was so painful, and obviously like affecting me on the outside too. Just to give you some perspective, I know you think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not exaggerating. Now we'll get into that later, but now I have a healthier cramp cycle, and so now I'm able to say that was like not normal. So I dealt with that basically my entire life until I got on birth control in my mid-20s. So I was on birth control. I just took the daily pill for 2 years. I did go to see an OBGYN when I was in high school, and they thought that I might have had endometriosis. Back in those days, that was something that no one knew or ever talked about. And back then she told me, well, you know, I'm like 14, 15, 16. You could get a special surgery to diagnose whether or not you have endometriosis, but it's very invasive. And I was like abstaining and not trying to get pregnant anyway, so it didn't really make any sense. But she said that she could feel it. And so based on my symptoms, based on what she could feel from the examination, she thought that I had endometriosis. I was never actually diagnosed. That was just what this doctor told me. And so, like I said, about 10 years later, I got on birth control for 2 years. The birth control did lessen my cramping, which made me think, okay, well, maybe my cramping is connected to some kind of hormonal imbalance. What that imbalance is, I'm not really sure. So then I'm on birth control for 2 years. And then I decide that it's time to get pregnant. So I get off birth control. No one told me, which if you're planning on getting pregnant, give your body minimum 6 months. I even say like a year. Like, give your body a break from birth control. We don't realize in this modern age, but your hormones are very slow moving. Your body's very slow moving. We live in a microwave society where we just want everything now. Hence me getting off birth control and getting pregnant the next month, and then just having a ton of issues staying pregnant. So because your body does move much slower, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you take a break from birth control at least 6 months. Really, it should be up to a year. I think it did take my body a full 2 years to recover from what the birth control did to my body. And this is something that I wish doctors would talk about more. I wish with young girls that they were more educated and that they let them know, hey, you might really struggle to get pregnant when you want to actually get pregnant because you've been on this for X amount of years. I was only on it for 2 years, but some people are on it for a decade or longer, and it's gonna have, the longer you're on it, probably very intense effects on your hormones. For me, that was in the case of me having issues getting pregnant. So that is my tip number one, is monitor the birth control. If you know someone who is young, who is considering birth control, not that they shouldn't do it, but just give them all the information so they can make an educated decision on, okay, well, what's my timeline for wanting to get pregnant, and giving themselves time to recuperate so that they aren't having to deal with the heartbreak of miscarriage, infertility, etc., etc. And I don't know. I'm suspicious too that birth control has more long-term effects and is much harder on your body than we're willing to admit that the medical field is willing to be honest about, because birth control makes them tons of money, which sounds very conspiracy theory, but also having been through what I've been through and seeing other people's stories is just really interesting. Anyway, that's my tangent on birth control. So I'm going to go through the timeline of the miscarriages when I had them, in case you haven't been able to watch the other video. So my first one was in May of 2018, then August 2018, April 2019, May 2019, June 2019, October 2019. So that is 6 within 2 years. So I was able to get pregnant really easily, and then just kept miscarrying. So I basically, how did I get pregnant after 6 miscarriages? The actual answer, you're not gonna like this answer, is I don't know. And that's because I did several different things along the process, and I'm not sure which one it was that actually helped, but obviously one of these things was helpful for me in the way my body processed. I do have an inkling of what was the most effective, and I'll go through that. So I'm basically gonna answer this question like scientists do, with a bunch of theories. So I have several different theories on what I think was helpful and what could have been the key to me getting pregnant. So theory number one is less stress. So after the 3rd miscarriage, I quit my high stress job. So I had a job where I was working 50, 60 really long hours, and it was a very stressful job, very rigorous. It was intense emotionally, mentally, and physically. So that was hard on my body, and I had that job for a couple years before, and during all those miscarriages, I was finally like, I think I'm gonna try giving my body a break. So my theory is that I came off all that stress and all that cortisone going through my body probably did help. It probably did help prepare my body for pregnancy. Now, I did quit my job and I did get pregnant after that, and immediately I was still miscarrying. So it wasn't like this immediate change. Oh, I quit my job, now I'm better. But like I said, the body does take a long time to process. So maybe me taking it easy over time is what actually helped me get pregnant. So I took off 3 months where I saved up money beforehand so that we could do that. I took off 3 months and just didn't work. I did a couple shows for fun. So I was going to rehearsals and had some kind of a schedule, but it was fun work. It wasn't stressful. And then I did go back to work after that, and I worked part-time so that I could still create space in my life for rest, and it wasn't an afterthought. It was something I was being intentional about at the time, was resting. And I just worked 30 hours a week, and then that left time for naps and downtime and whatever else I felt like I needed. And the job was not as stressful either, so that may have had an impact as well. And then so I went back to work in August 2019, and then I ended up getting pregnant in January of 2020. So, and that's the pregnancy that went full. I had miscarriages even after I worked at that job. Yeah, the October 2019 would have been at that job, but then the next one actually went the full term. So that's my theory number one, is find ways. Not everyone has the luxury of quitting your job. I get that. But there are ways that you can add rest into your life. You can make it a priority. You can sleep more. You can, instead of taking that break to watch TV, you can take a nap. Just ways to give your body physical rest. Maybe pump the brakes on your social life. If you have this crazy active social life and you feel like you have to be going all the time, maybe try to take some time off of that and see how your body responds. Whether or not you are trying to get pregnant, rest is a good thing to implement. So I believe that everyone can put some version of rest into their lives. If you want to do something more extreme because you're desperate like I was, then you can start to save up money to take extra time off or take a sabbatical or whatever you need to get yourself in the right spot for pregnancy. Theory number two is that I changed my diet, and my diet is what actually helped me get pregnant. So this is something that is a little more extreme, that, maybe if you have gone through multiple miscarriages or you have been trying to get pregnant, your body may be lacking nutrients and just a proper diet. So what I did before I got pregnant for the 7th pregnancy, which was the first one that went full term, was I did a 3-month paleo diet. And so this consists, and I tried to make it, because sometimes you do these diets like paleo and then people just eat bacon all the time. So I tried to do like a very healthy version of it where I was making sure that I was getting lots of greens, that, I was eating a lot of different colors. I was eating, grass-fed meats and organic, pretty much everything to try to get my body. And like I said, your body absorbs nutrients over time. So it's not like, oh, I ate healthy this week, now I'm going to get pregnant. Like, your body is just slower in the way that it stores things and functions, and it takes time to build your microbiome, build a healthy gut, all of that. And so I did that for 3 months to kind of at least do, and I'm sure you could probably even do it for longer to really be in a really sweet spot. But that's how long I did it. Austin also did the diet with me. So we both did what we call a pregnancy diet. It's just paleo diet. And we were pretty strict paleo. So basically nothing that comes in a package is kind of how we did it. So nothing that was prepared, like bread, crackers. I know there's a lot of paleo treats, but we didn't do any of that. So it's pretty much mostly just fruits, we did do fruits, vegetables, and meats. No dairy, except I think I did take like a yogurt prebiotic, kind of medicinally. So that was the one thing that I did do. So that's what I would say was modified paleo in that way. But otherwise, it was pretty strict paleo. And so that way we were both at our best to get pregnant. So because that did work for our first baby, we did it again going into the next pregnancy for our second baby. We did do the 3-month. We just do it now because for me, after having so many miscarriages, I don't want there to be a question of, well, maybe if I did the diet, then we wouldn't be going through this tragedy. So for me, for my sanity, we just do it every time. Whenever we want to try to get pregnant, we do this 3-month paleo diet. And I mean, if it's not doing anything, there's nothing wrong with being like at your optimal as far as your diet and your nutrients and what you're getting and just health-wise to be at your optimal health for pregnancy. It's never a bad idea anyway. So it's not like it's hurting you. You know what I mean? It's a sacrifice. It's hard, but it's not negative. And for us, it's like, for me, it's mentally and emotionally safer to just do it and to feel like, okay, well, I put my best foot forward to get ready for this pregnancy. If something does go wrong, I am less likely to blame myself. You shouldn't blame yourself, but we all get caught up in these things in our head. So that's just something that we do. We are gonna plan to get pregnant again, and we will be doing that paleo diet beforehand just to make sure that we're at our optimal and that my body especially has all the nutrients that it needs to carry this baby full term. Theory number 3 is supplements. So I did a few different supplements and experimented with quite a few things along the journey to becoming pregnant. So when I first found out I was pregnant, I got on a prenatal vitamin. I think that was probably a little belated. If you're trying to get pregnant, I recommend getting on a prenatal vitamin a couple months in advance so that your body has everything that it needs. Particularly, the big thing about the prenatal vitamins is the folic acid that your body needs while you're pregnant. And so that's one of the big ingredients that's in there. It has a lot of other healthy stuff that you may want to do in advance of trying to get pregnant. It's not, I mean, your body's just going to get rid of it if you don't need it. It's not going to hurt you. Some women struggle to, because I looked at, if I had this, was to absorb folic acid in the form of a vitamin. So instead of taking folic acid, they would take folate. And their bodies were able to absorb that so that, they were getting enough for pregnancy. When I did the research on it, I found that my prenatal vitamin already had folate in that form. And I also took a green supplement, which I'll put in the notes below what I took. A green drink that I've been taking since I was 12 my whole life that had tons of folate, like more than I would ever need in it too. So I was getting a double dose of that. So for me, that wasn't the issue, but that might be something that's worth looking into if you need folate to absorb into your body as opposed to the folic acid. That might help. Pretty much just during those 2 years, even during the miscarriages, I was just taking prenatals instead of a regular multivitamin pretty much religiously every single day, which I'm sure over time probably helped, but I don't think that was my particular issue. But I'm still going to take it in case, it is the problem when you're in this state of just trying to figure it out. You're so desperate for anything, so you just try it all. The other supplement that I did take was progesterone. Progesterone does have to be prescribed. Well, there are progesterone topical creams that you can use, but the amount of progesterone that your body needs to sustain pregnancy, if you have a progesterone issue, you're going to need more of a prescription. So that is something that you can get from your doctor. Typically, they won't give it to you unless, if you've never had any pregnancy issues or miscarriages, typically they won't prescribe it. I mean, you can always ask. Be bold. Ask the doctor. Worst they can say is no. But you wouldn't really need extra progesterone unless there was an issue. So I took the suppositories, and after my second miscarriage, I tested my progesterone. I had a blood test, and it was, as I was miscarrying, a level 6, which is super, super low. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, my progesterone is low, but it's the chicken or the egg, right? Is it low because I happen to be miscarrying right now, or is it because it was low that it caused the miscarriage? And that's something we don't really know. What is super frustrating about Western medicine is their view on hormones. And every time I really push to get tested, can you at least test my hormones, see where I'm at? They would do it, and I'm a big advocate for myself, so be an advocate for yourself. but they will kind of hum and haw and roll their eyes and tell you, oh, we can test you, but it's not going to mean anything. It doesn't really do anything. But for me, I was able to find, okay, well, I know I have this deficiency. You know, I'm not even in normal range. Like a lot of times they'll say, oh, normal is such a wide range, so we can test your hormones, but it doesn't do anything. But for you and your journey to have kids and your education, it might be worth it. You might find something that you didn't know you'd find. So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to push for that and just, you know, be bold and ask. So I did take progesterone. So I started taking it when I was pregnant for the 3rd, 4th, 5th pregnancies. When I got pregnant, I'd start taking the suppositories. For the 6th and for the 7th, that went the whole way, I started taking progesterone when I was ovulating. So I'd do it earlier before I got a positive pregnancy test. And at this point, I was really tracking my body. So I knew the days, when you have a lot of miscarriages, you just get really good at it. I knew the days that I was ovulating. And so that's when I would start taking the progesterone in preparation for pregnancy. So I did that for the 6th. I did that for the 7th. Maybe that helped, having that extra progesterone early on. But I was taking a lot of progesterone over the time. So that's kind of not as sure. The other thing I looked into supplement-wise was selenium, which helps if you have a thyroid issue. So somewhere around my miscarriage 4 or 5, I went to go see a reproductive endocrinologist, and they ran a bunch of tests. They thought for a second that I might have lupus, which I thought was really random and weird. And then I went to a lupus specialist. I don't remember what they're called, but then they were like, yeah, no, you don't have lupus, you're fine. But there was something in the autoimmune that was triggering on the blood that they sent me there for that. If you get sent to a lupus person, you'll know. But lupus is like hardcore. I guess it does affect pregnancy, but you like lose your hair and stuff. It's very intense. Like, I don't know. I thought there'd be one more obvious trait that I would have it. So that was confusing. But I started taking selenium, which has to do with helping your thyroid, which is involved in a lot of autoimmune diseases. For me, don't really think the selenium did anything, but if you know that you have thyroid issues, it might, not hurt to take it. I took it, maybe it helped. I think my body probably flushed a lot of it out, but at the time I didn't care. I was just, trying a lot of stuff to make sure that I had enough. Selenium is like a natural thing that's found in like almonds and other foods too. So it's not this artificial, I guess depending on where they source it from, but it's something that your body recognizes. The supplement that I took, that if you are having recurrent miscarriage, I would just say, take this sucker. I'm not a doctor, but I don't know, if you're desperate like me and you really want to get pregnant, the thing that helped me the most is the Vitex berry, Vitex, which is also chaste tree berry extract. And you should probably get organic. But yeah, it's just a little guy. And what I noticed when I started taking this was that the flow of my period changed. So it went from, so I'm like, okay, this is affecting my menstrual cycle, like my hormones. And so the flow of my period changed. It used to be like super heavy, super intense. Like I said, the death cramps also came with like TMI, but you have to know if you fall into this category. Crazy amounts of blood, just excessive, more than probably your average person for a menstrual cycle. And I noticed that once I started taking the Vitex, that it kind of normalized a little bit. It wasn't as much. And so I was like, this is weird. I'm hardly bleeding at all compared to what I usually do. Whereas your normal person would be like, this is my regular period. So that I did notice. And my cramping didn't totally go away, but it lessened. So I was noticing less, sorry, there was a dust in front of the camera. I got distracted. I was noticing less blood flow and also less cramping. So that is the thing that actually affected my hormones. So maybe that is the supplement. And I only started taking that one before the 7th pregnancy. So that is something that I did different from, along with the diet, were the two things I did different from every other pregnancy, was taking the Vitex and doing the paleo diet that I only did for the 7th pregnancy that went full term. theory number 4 is that my body just needed time. Like, there was nothing that I could have done in the interim. It just needed a certain time and space to process and get ready to have kids. When I say that, I mean time from being on birth control, specifically for me. I think maybe my body just needed 2 years to fully come off of the effects of birth control to be in a place to sustain a pregnancy. These are the types of things that are frustrating because they're question marks, because we will never know, because they haven't really done a ton of research on how birth control directly affects your ability to get pregnant. But I do know quite a few people that have a miscarriage when they first get off birth control. Could that be a coincidence? Yes. But could it also be something else? I don't know. And is it for you, as you're thinking about maybe getting pregnant or having these issues, is it worth it to wait and give yourself that time so that you don't have to go through all this grief in the meantime? And as much as we hate to wait for things in life, maybe it is good to just take a break and let your body reset. The hard thing is different people take different amounts of time. But like I said, minimum of 6 months, I would say, coming off birth control, if not a full year. For me, maybe this is the thing too, is maybe it didn't have any effect. Maybe the birth control was totally unrelated. But like I said, this is a theory that I'm expounding on, that maybe that was connected to my issues of recurrent miscarriage. Before we get to the last theory, something that I did want to touch on was something that was crazy that I did not know until I went through this. But so I had a periodontologist. Once I would get pregnant, I saw, like I mentioned, a reproductive endocrinologist, which is someone that they send you to if you're really struggling with recurrent miscarriage and infertility, things like that. And they did a lot of tests on me. And every time I went through a miscarriage, they would almost do like these tests again, just to check and see where I was. And there's, a whole list of them. I like a whole bunch of tests. And aside from one time, they thought I was a little borderline for some autoimmune thing. So they sent me to a lupus specialist. Turned out I didn't have it. It was just low, normal range. But outside of that one time in 2 years and all this blood that they took, my husband and I, they told us we were totally normal, that there was nothing wrong with us. And he also told me that 50%, half of people that struggle with recurrent miscarriage go through this testing that they do and come out normal, which tells me that a lot of the issues are caused by something that they don't test for, that maybe we haven't discovered yet. Science just hasn't caught up with the body, and we don't know the secret or what's causing the miscarriages, or it's just totally random and unrelated, and infertility is infertility, and there's nothing that causes it or doesn't cause it, and it's, totally out there in the universe. But my gut feeling is that, like I said, I find more and more people are talking about it, infertility, whether that's being able to get pregnant or having recurrent miscarriage. And I wonder if it is really just that more people feel comfortable talking about it and you hear about it more, or if there really is an underlying problem and we just don't know what that is yet. I remember being really frustrated that, not that it's their fault, doctors can only do what they can do, and especially when we live in our Western medicine where they treat with, a drug, i.e., you're struggling with your cycle, here, let's take birth control, or you have a headache, take a painkiller, or, you know what I mean? That's like, no shame, that's just how it is. They look at the symptom and they treat the symptom as opposed to treating the root. And so it's no different in, fertility journeys, is you have to find the root, and the doctor isn't always the most helpful in helping you find that root. So that's probably why you're on that journey. I know I had to do that. I had to do a lot of research on my own, in my own desperation of this dream, find different sources, different pieces of information, different people's stories. So hopefully something that I said in here is helpful to you. And with the, guidance of your doctor, obviously with your own history, you can try things that may help you achieve your dream of getting pregnant and sustaining a pregnancy. Theory number 5 was that God did a miracle in my body and healed me. So I remember, which I know not everybody listening or watching this is a person of faith, and they're going to be like, that's weird. But, this is my story. This is one of my theories. So I was very discouraged, obviously, after 6 consecutive miscarriages. I remember December 2019, January of 2020, pre-COVID, I was just like so sad and emotionally, and I'm so sensitive to this. I know it's so hard. I remember being afraid to hope for a baby, being afraid to want a family, because when you open yourself up to hope and to wanting something, then it's very painful when that doesn't come to fruition for whatever reason. And so as a Christian, I did believe that God was sovereign. Not that he necessarily made me have these miscarriages. I don't believe that. But that we live in this fallen world. Whatever was going on with my body, it just didn't happen at the time. And so obviously through this journey for me, because I am a Christian, I was praying a lot. I was fasting a lot. And it wasn't like I only did that for the 7th pregnancy and then God heard me or whatever, but I was doing it every time consistently. And so that was part of the journey too, was God's sovereignty in it all, because every time I would ask and I would pray, and obviously 6 times in a row he said no. And this is the thing too about God, is I know who he is. I know that he is capable of miracles. I know that he is powerful. And so you're kind of like, well, I know you could do this for me, but you're not. And that's painful too. so then you get mad at God. And like, I understand the resistance to not wanting to pray for miracles because God won't answer you. So I get it. If that's where you are, I understand. That is something that you should talk to God about, and he can take your anger and he can take your sadness. So something to chat with him about. But, after miscarriage 3, I bought this sign at Hobby Lobby that says, "For this child, I have prayed." And it was in the middle of going through all of this. And for me, it was this little tiny act of faith to buy this sign. And it's referencing Samuel, where Hannah is, wanting to have a baby, and she's at the temple and crying out. And then I think it's Eli is the priest at that time. Sorry if I'm like mixing up names. He's like, "Woman, are you drunk? Like, what's your problem?" And she's like, "No, I'm just grieving because I want this child." And if you have grieved a child, you want a child, you hear her. You should go read it. And she has this beautiful prayer too. Once God answers her prayer, it's absolutely astounding. But so I bought this little sign and I just put it away in the back of my closet. Like, I'm going to keep this for when I have kids. And obviously, trying again, I felt like too, was a way that Austin and I maintained our faith in this season, because we obviously kept trying because we thought that ultimately kids were for us. God would answer our prayer. We would get kids someday. And so trying again is for us, or it was for me, or it can be for you, an act of faith. That being said, we tried like multiple times, and, it took a while for us to get there. And, I know we all know that God isn't like we do XYZ and we pray in a certain way and he answers us, but I think he does honor faith in the Bible. And, that as you're seeking after him and as you're going through this journey, and even in the midst of like praying and then having a miscarriage and praying and having a miscarriage and praying and having a miscarriage 6 times over, I remember for the 7th one just thinking, okay, well, this is it, Lord. Like, we're going to try, because emotionally I'm tapped out and God knows what you can handle. And either this is going to go or it's not, and we're going to look at surrogacy or adopting or other avenues. And so for whatever reason, I think God healed my body. And whether that was me helping myself by researching and doing all these other things, whether the Holy Spirit led me to certain things and do certain diets or whatever, like I said, these are all theories. I don't actually know the full of it because we just don't have the scientific information, which is frustrating, but this is the world we live in, right? And so like me, Austin and I having faith to try again, and then having faith to do for my body what I think it needed to put myself in an optimal place, and all of that together, maybe that was how I was able to finally get pregnant. But at the same time, maybe it was also just the time that I needed. Maybe it was that my body needed these supplements. Maybe it was that I needed to go on this diet. Maybe that it was I need to get out of my stressful job. I don't know exactly for me what it was. I think that maybe it was a combination of all of my theories, that getting to a healthy place physically, spiritually, emotionally, and for me, obviously, my spiritual walk is a big part of my mental health and my peace. And so being so involved in with God through that process probably did help, like my stress levels and other things too. So ultimately, I wish I could tell you. I really, really do. ABC, this is how you get pregnant. This worked for me. I hope it'll work for you. Follow this plan. And, I honestly, oh gosh, if I could give that to you, I would so in a heartbeat give it to you. All I have is the pieces that I discovered from the journey that I went on, and they still might not be perfect. They may be imperfect pieces or things that stuck out to me, but I did want to send into the world at least something that I did. If it could really help just one person kind of make a difference, give them an idea, that key that helps them get pregnant, then that would be so fulfilling for me. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions or things that you needed more details on. I did kind of rush through some of the parts, so if there's something that you're like, wait, what exactly did you do here? Or did you try this? Or have you ever heard of this? Possibly I have, because I did a lot. I just picked the things that really stuck out in my journey. I'm an open book if you have any questions, and I would really love to help women in this way, because I know it's such a rough time and it's not totally helpful as far as going to doctors. You don't always get the support you need. So hi, I'm a random person on the internet that might be able to help. I'm going to go on a quick side note tangent. So something that I did do while I was pregnant was stop my rigorous workout routine. So I was pretty hardcore, 4 days a week, lifting and cardio exercise routine. And so I do that now in life. Actually, after 2 kids, it's more like 2 to 3 days, to be honest, but it used to be 4. So I just make them really count. You know what I mean? I do lots of walking. But anyways, when I did get pregnant, I did ease off of my really rigorous routine and just like slept for the whole first trimester. For me, I just got super, super, super tired. And so that is something that I did consistently do during pregnancy. Not to say that you can't work out, everybody's body's different, but I mean, if you do still keep having this problem, maybe try easing off of the really intense working out. Not that you can't do yoga and do walks, at least for the first trimester, until the baby is a little more stable, a little more secure, and then resume as your body is able to a more aggressive workout routine. I was always not afraid. I know baby weight can be very scary because your body is changing so much, all these hormones, whatever. But you can lose the weight afterwards. There's so many ways to do that. And so I was like never afraid to gain weight during pregnancy, because a lot of that is I knew myself, and I knew that it was a priority for me to get back to my optimal health for the next pregnancy. So you can do it. You can do it. So I wouldn't stress so much. Obviously, don't stress while you're pregnant, which is like the easiest thing ever. JK, it's actually not that easy. But like physically, don't push yourself too hard. If you are having issues, if you're like, dude, I'm a pregnancy machine and I'll be deadlifting hundreds of pounds all day, then maybe that's your journey. But don't feel pressure from other people to have to do XYZ workout, because you need to sense your body and you need to sense that you may need rest, like I did. If no one has told you yet today, you are doing a good job. Thank you guys for watching Mom Babes on this episode. I was really excited to do, and I will catch you next time. Actually, P.S. I'm going to pray for you real fast. I don't care if you don't believe in God. I'm still going to pray for you. Lord, I thank you for who you are, God. Just how you are so loving toward us. Even though we go through very difficult things, show these women where you are, God. Where, like, in the room you are. If you could just give them a visual of how you're standing or sitting or touching their shoulder just with them through this process. And for all the sadness, Lord, and all the loss, that you would give them the direction on how to grieve through that, how to progress on their journey. And Lord, I in faith am always going to come boldly before you and ask for miracles. I remember the story of David comes to mind when he prayed to God and fasted for Bathsheba's son who was dying, and just asked and begged God, you know, man after God's own heart. And then the baby died. You did not answer his prayer. And then he stopped fasting and got up and went along. I remember his servants were amazed. And he said that we don't know whether you will say yes or no, God. That we should always pray and we should always ask boldly, because maybe God will say yes. And so I pray for boldness of faith for these women, even though it's hard and even though it's painful to ask for things where we may be disappointed. I pray that you would strengthen their hearts for their families, for their dream of motherhood, God. And that you would connect them with the right people, the right doctors, the right homeopath people, the right support system, the right answer, and whatever that way is, God. And that you would just bless them, bless their womb, bless their body, bless their future family, and be with them this day. In Jesus' name, amen. Bye, guys.